Hello, it's Tuesday the 24th of September and I thought I'd take a look at crypto and see what's going on because we've had some really nice moves, particularly in some altcoin markets that have been in a very long downtrend that look finally like they could be turning up again. And so potentially though, everything's at a little bit of resistance level and we're still in September, which is the worst, seasonality wise, it's the worst performing month for Bitcoin of the year, and then October is Uptober. So we're not quite out of the woods yet in terms of seasonal patterns. In fact, if we take a look at Bitcoin, let's go back to the weekly chart and look at where we are. On this weekly, it looks really nice, doesn't it? It looks like a lovely big giant bull flag, lovely long handle. Nothing to dislike about this. But if we go back to September 2023, let's go down to the daily and talk about what the problem is. Here for now, the big problem is this 200-day moving average. And the 200-day moving average, for me, is the king of the chart of whatever time frame you're looking at. So an hourly 200 moving average is king of the hourly chart. And the same here on the daily, and it's a little bit of trouble. If we go back to 2023, when we bottomed, you can see we're very similar to where we are now. We made, in fact, a high in April. We retested it in the summer, couldn't break out. So we were in this sideways, double top, double bottom, sideways range, kind of messy. But when we wanted to get going again in September, October, this 200-day moving average was the issue. And it is important, support and resistance on this Bitcoin chart. There's a slight variation in where it is if you look at the futures, because the futures don't trade at weekends, but it is important. And once we get above it and we clear it, then we're going to look to the top of the flag pattern that we're in, and then hopefully the next leg up begins and October performs. There's a lot of, uncertainty out there in the world. There's a lot of war that we shouldn't have. There's this US election. We've got a lame duck president at the moment. I think that could upset broader markets, and I'm really hoping that Bitcoin outperforms and becomes a little bit of a safe haven in those times. So for now, here at this 200-day moving average, we could see a little bit of a bigger pullback because of where we are. In terms of measured move though, from the August 5th low that we have, here if I put this on, so I've measured from this low to this high, projected it from here. When you do that, the 61.8 level, where this swing is 61.8 of the first swing, very often is pretty good support and resistance, and that's working out here. That's at 62,400. It's where we thought we might have some resistance. As long as we hold above this, for me, this is really bullish sideways consolidation and a close above this daily 200 moving average. We should see more upside back to the top of the channel at 68,476. But back underneath 62,400, we may need to come back and test these moving averages, the daily moving averages, and potentially back to the bottom of this little kind of channel we're in. It's less optimistic. So for now, this is bullish consolidation, but we're sideways a bit of resistance level. We can see very nicely this 62,400 level double bottom in the last kind of couple of days, since really the end of last week. Friday we tested it. We tested it again on Sunday. It's holding as pretty good support. Could we make a kind of lower time frame head and shoulders pattern here, maybe, and see then a bigger pullback? But for now, yeah, we're just sideways in a bullish consolidation after a really nice bounce from that those lows at the beginning. 5th of September and the 5th of August have been really good lows. So I don't see an entry right here. You don't want to buy anything into the 200-day moving average without a kind of better buy signal than this. But there isn't really, for me, any reason to get out of longs in Bitcoin at the moment either. So a tricky resistance level that could turn into a bigger pullback, but just chop sideways for now. If we take a look at ETH, we've had a really nice move in ETH. Let's take a look where we are with ETH. And we've had a really nice move where ETH has been outperforming Bitcoin, which it hasn't done for some time. When we look at this ETH against Bitcoin chart, we can see that, you know, since 2021, this has been a pretty nasty downtrend. And are we potentially at a level where we could see a bigger bounce? I have to say, you know, when I'm looking at fib retrace levels, for example, this one, I'm going to put this on from the high to low. I want to see a really good reaction at the 236 fib or the 50% or something like that before I lean on it. And this 236 fib wasn't clear, but this 50% was. So yeah, it's not clear to me yet that we are potentially at a level where we could see a decent bounce. Now, if we look left in terms of support and resistance, are we at a decent level where we could see a bounce? I would say maybe a little bit lower, but we're kind of around where we made a bottom previously in ETH BTC. We made a pretty cool inverted head and shoulders pattern here, and we are getting pretty close to the neckline of that, so potentially we could see a bigger reversal here. I think if we count from the high that we made in June, that we've potentially made 5 waves down. So then I would look to see back to this swing high. I think our first on the upside should be up here. And if we can get above that 0.044, which is this previous swing high and low, I think above there we could talk about potentially a bigger bottom in ETH Bitcoin. But for now, I have to say this just looks like a bounce and a downtrend. If we go down a time frame, so for example, here we are on the daily, and we look at the high that we made in June and this 5 wave move that we've made lower, we're holding underneath the daily moving averages. The daily 50 is a really big deal. It's where we failed when we tried to rally in July. And yeah, I think I would be, you know, it's certainly not enough of a trend change yet for me to be selling Bitcoin and buying more ETH yet, unfortunately. It looks really good, it's really tempting, but it's not quite enough to get me to roll over. Now, one thing I will say is, whenever you get a move above a daily 50 moving average and you hold above it, then you usually see a really strong move. And when you do that, you can then, buying pullbacks is a really good way to go about it. Quite often, when you blast through it though, you don't come back and retest it. You see a really strong move, and we've seen that in some altcoins today. So for now, I have to say on every time frame, you know, if we took out this swing high here and made a higher low, I think it's worth a look. Any move above, holding above this daily 50, I think buying pullbacks and looking for 0.44 and then potentially the daily 200 moving average next would be a really good look. So it's tempting, but it's just not quite over the line yet. And that's really the story of a lot of altcoins at the moment. We'll start with the big ones. Let's take a look at Solana. We need to have a kind of deeper dive to going on in here in Solana. Let's tidy up this chart, because when I look at Solana big picture in terms of fib patterns, so if we go from the high that we made all the way back here in 2021, sorry, November, to the low that we made in January 2023, these fib levels have been really reliable. And I'm going to lean on them because we had a really good reaction at this 236 fib. We were messy at the 38.2, that very often is. And we reversed at a 786. For me, when you reverse at a 786, a fib, your first target is usually the 38.2. And your confirmation that you're going there is underneath the 61.8. And you can expect the 50% level in the middle to be tricky. So we haven't quite reached kind of, for me, the no-brainer target here in Solana. And I think that whilst we kind of stay underneath 163, there is the risk that we continue lower down towards this 100 and 104 target. there's a few other ways to look at this. Let's take this away. Okay, and this, if we were to look at the big rally that we've had from this 2022 low, it's hard to argue this wasn't 5 waves. I think it looks like a really nice 5-wave move. And normally when you have a pullback, you come back to the previous wave 4, which puts us down here, or at least a little bit lower than where we are now. Now, I could be wrong. And so for me, this is underperforming and is not quite, it's chop sideways consolidation with a risk, unless we break out of this consolidation, that we could go a little bit lower in Solana. Now, holding above this weekly 20 moving average doesn't quite, I think if this week, okay, one thing with big down candles like this one, big thrust down candles, and big up thrust candles, is the 50% of those candles can often be a really strong support and resistance. For example, when we were going higher here, big green thrust candle, 50% back, and we kept going higher. Here, this big green thrust candle, 50% back, was really good support for 3 weeks. And only when we broke it and closed underneath it did we see more downside and enter, and this uptrend was really over. It was over here when we kind of broke the middle. And so we can say the opposite on the way up here. This big thrust candle, 50% was support. When we closed underneath it, we're going lower. And now this 50% of this red candle is holding us really good resistance for Solana, like this, right? So we're still in a downtrend. Now we can move this down. We've got another nasty red down candle. Last week, we couldn't close above the 50% of this nasty down candle in Solana. So technically for me, this is still in play and we're still in a pretty nasty downtrend. We've got a long week. It's only Tuesday. This candle doesn't close till next Sunday night. And yeah, whilst we're holding above this 50% level, 144, I think it looks pretty good. But I would like to see at the end of this week us close above it, and then I would say I would be more confident that we are not going to continue lower from here. And this 144, 50% of this nasty down move that we made at the end of August, potentially if we get back underneath this, I have to say I think there's a little bit of a risk that we continue lower. So when we look at where we are here on the daily and on Solana, that's our key support that we need to hold above if we're going to keep going higher. And I'm a little bit concerned, if we look from the 6th of September low, I'm a little bit concerned that this now looks a little bit like an equal measured move. So here, this equal measured move here is in the middle. And so I'm going to say that a weekly close back underneath 144 or back underneath these lows, or back, which would put us back underneath these daily moving averages, kind of confirm this as a 3-wave move, and we've got another leg lower to come. So important support in this sideways consolidation. Really, this is kind of important support here for Solana if we're going to keep going up and above that 200-day moving average in this range. A breakout from this range really will tell us if the bottom is in or not. I think if we go any lower, that kind of 104, 100 level may still be calling. Be an absolute gift, because big picture, let's go back to the big picture again. We've had a really strong 5-wave rally, and here we are in a really nice sideways correction, and this would be, a textbook equal measured move pullback for Solana, and a great opportunity, let's put it that way, because this is wave 1, wave 2, and this next one I think will be the big one. We don't want to miss it. Okay, so some other stuff we looked at last week is doing really well. Let's take a look at them. One of them from my last update was Bittsensor or Tau. Let's take a look at it. I can't find it where I've hidden it. I've got a few that I'm looking at. Here we go. Where is baby Tau gone? Here we go. I'm not doing very well here. Where have I hidden? Anyway, let's take another look. So Bittsensor. So we looked at this last week because I thought this was making a really nice bottoming pattern, head and shoulders pattern, and since we looked at it last week, it's completely taken off. This was a really good support and resistance level through the middle in this one. So where are we going to go, and how are we going to, if you like this, you're going to want to see a pullback right before this finishes, and I think we'll get one, because if this should make 5 waves. So we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the key question is going to be, where is this 4th wave going to come in to let us in? Because 5th waves in crypto can often be really strong. So here on the daily, I'm going to put my fib retracers on from this Binance high, and I'm going to say, you know what, I don't think we can rely on these, because I didn't get the reaction that I wanted to see at this 236 fib level here, which was a pretty important support and resistance level. Now, if we were to reverse here at this 38.2 and come back, and we came back and tested it, you know, and then bounced from there, I would say, okay, we validated it, and then we can use these fib levels for targets. So the other way we're going to look at it is we're going to measure from this low. Say this is our first swing, pullback, here's our next swing, right? So I think potentially we are at a level, this was the 1.618 that lined up with that 38.2, and I think if we keep going, 50% and 745 will be next. So 579 and 707 if we're right about the fib levels, and if not, we just keep blasting 745 next. So what happens when you can't see what's going on? For me, I have to say that I use Heikin-Ashi candlesticks, right? They're like a moving average on your candlesticks. So if you put them on, you can see, you get some red, you see a nice little pullback, and you roll over. And I go down a time frame. So here on the 4 hour, you can see that potentially we are having a little bit of a double top move here at this 38.2 fib level, 580. We want to see if we're going to keep blasting through, but corrections, if we see bigger corrections, for example, this correction here that we saw a week ago, it's going to last a little bit longer, and we're going to a little bit more red, and a little bit of potentially a 3-wave move. So I don't know where this is going to bring us back to. If we see a bigger one, it could come back to here. That would, for me, after this breakout and this lovely inverted head and shoulders pattern, would be a gift for a 5th wave higher. And in crypto, you know, you kind of very often with these moves start slow, see a really strong 3rd wave. I'm not even sure that we've completed 5 waves in this swing from this 5th of September low. So if you're not in this one, this is one where you kind of want to see a shallow pullback, nice little 3 waves, or a 4-hour reset. You can see each 4-hour entry in this has been a really nice swing. So I think we've got more upside, but a little bit of a pullback will be a gift, and it will be the fuel to keep going higher in Bittsensor. Okay, there's a few other coins that little tiddlers that and I really count Bittsensor as a little tiddler. First one is this anyone. Okay, so everybody knows I'm not affiliated, don't know them, just like the chart whenever, and this is a really good example of what we have talked about. When you get above the daily 50 moving average, you tend to see a really strong move. So, and when you're in between these daily moving averages, you can get stuck. So here in anyone, we see a really strong move above the daily 50 moving average. So when you do that, I'm always looking for previous highs and lows. And here in the middle, we're at a big kind of number. We're around that round number 1.0. But also if I measure from this low to high, pushing higher. So whenever this becomes 1.618 of the first swing, anything like that, then you're looking for a pullback, wave 4, and another leg higher. The reason why I think we might be having a little bit of trouble here And it's going to be interesting where this closes. Remember, we need a daily close. Yes, there's a little bit of a support and resistance level through the middle with the swing low from July and here. And we're also, if we count this, measure from the low that we made again on the 5th of August, we're right at that equal measured move level. So whenever you get to potentially a equal measured move level like this, you will see some profit taking, and you want to make sure that if you measure fibs on the whole swings, back underneath this 236 fib level will bring us back to the 618, 38.2.9, and underneath there will mean that this, we're still in a sideways range and this is no breakout. So ideal trend support now becomes in at this 1.0 level round number that needs to hold, and we see we're more bearish. Okay, if we get underneath 0.935, and in this zone I would expect, if we're going to keep trending higher, this in this zone between 0.9 and 1, the support to hold. So I am watching this because I have some. I want to see if we reverse here or if this is just a little bit of a pause. Previous swing highs and lows, equal measured moves, they're always tricky levels to get through. So that's anyone. Now, if we blast through it, happy days. We're going to look for 1.618 next, a wave 4, and then carry on higher. That's one I like. NPC is another little one that I like, a non-playable coin. This is a really good example of what you want to see when you see a close above a daily 50 moving average and a good trend move. Sometimes though, they don't always work, but this one, unlike anyone, has gone beyond the equal measured move level here. Even if we measure it from here, we're at this 1.618. So I am expecting this to continue higher, and I like how we're kind of holding above it, 0.019. Now, what does the fib pattern give us for a target then if this one has bottomed with a nice 1, 2, 3 move? Well, if we measure from the lows back in March, this is MEX exchange. First thing I want to see is, are these fib levels working? First 236 fib did. This was a 61.8. This 50% is kind of, I like to think that they are. Yes, and I like that we came back to this previous swing low and we had 5 waves up from when it launched in April. So that's pretty bullish. We know that when you bounce from a 61.8 fib, you go back to the 38.2, that's your first target, and beyond it, sometimes you do a bigger ABC and you get up to the 236 fib. So for me, I think this continues higher here to this 38.2. 0.022, then this would be our first target no matter what, and the next target is going to be the equal measured move. So if we measure from here to here, project it from this low, you can see that gets us up here to 0.26, and then that would be a big 3-wave equal measured move. Now we could see if that lines up with any fib targets. Take this bigger swing here. Kind of does. It's 61.8 going the other way. That would be pretty normal, right? So I'm looking for more upside in this one. I think it's looking really strong. So it's just a matter of getting a good entry. So again, look for some really nice red, pull back to these moving averages, and then turning green again. That's the important thing. Don't just buy it when it goes red. You need it to go red and then go green, up again. And non-playable coin then, little tiddler, listen, don't go crazy in these, I think has some nice upside. Okay, I've got a request to look at render. Let's take a look at render. Let's take all my scribbles off this coin. We're going to start with the weekly chart. So as soon as we look at this weekly chart, unfortunately, we can see what the problem is, and it's this weekly 50 moving average, which was previously really good. So when we've gotten above it, it's been support. It was support here in March, it was support here in August in 2023, and now we're underneath it. Potentially it's a little bit of resistance. Now, this is another one where you know, there's halfway back of the candlesticks. It's not kind of really working in this one. I'm wondering whether maybe the market's looking at a monthly. Sometimes you go up a time frame, not really. Okay. So we're not going to worry about those. We've got bunched up flat moving averages going sideways. That means at the moment we are going sideways, hopefully bottoming. The risk here is from this low that we made on the 5th of August. This again is just an ABC equal measured move, and I would be a little bit concerned if we'd stopped at this 61.8 level. That comes in at 6.4 and it lines up exactly with this weekly 50 moving average. So I'm going to say that that 6.4 is the level we need to overcome. And above 6.4 we get to 7.6, which is the daily 200 moving average, and these kind of pretty interesting lows, but I think we're on our way up if we can get obviously back up there and above there. So at the moment it hasn't done anything that says bottom, right? When you're, you know, if you just count a trend as lower lows and lower highs, you've got to take out that previous swing high like this and then make a higher low, and then you're going up. So we're not quite there yet in terms of render, but you know, sometimes if you wait for that to happen, you may miss some pretty decent moves. So you just got to have some sensible targets if that happens. Do fib help us tell if we're on our way up again? Well, going this way, I say, yeah, pretty good. What would the fib target be though if we measure and look at the pattern we've done from all-time lows to highs in this one? And it's, you know, it's a little bit messy. So we didn't kind of bounce for me clearly from this 786, although we've got a pretty good reaction here at this 236 fib. I have to say this is one of those charts where I'm not 100% relying on those fibs at the moment, and I'm going to rely on moving averages and say this in terms of support and resistance and in terms of projected levels is a really tough level. 6.4 and above 6.4 we can say render should see, we will have completed a really nice three-wave correction and we should see lots more upside. There's a few wobble places. So first off, I would draw in where this trend line is and this equal measured move, so 7.65. But other than that, I think it'll look really good. So just like a lot of other altcoins, you know, tokens, everything's just looking really bottomy, but not quite enough yet to declare it official. Pepe is a really good example of that in the if we look at the meme coins, let's take a look at where we are with Pepe, if I can find it. Yeah, so if we go to the weekly chart of Pepe, you can see that we again have made a very nice three-wave correction, found some pretty good support. If we measure from the lows in Pepe, here we are bouncing from a really decent 61.8 fib level. So we know that we are going up again if we get back above this 50% level through the middle. Also really important support and resistance. There's so many coins with the same kind of issue that we're not quite over the hump yet, so that we can declare it a bottom. So 903, a close above 903 or holding above that level would be a bottom in Pepe, and at the moment we're stuck underneath these sideways moving averages. We can see if we go down to the daily, that's also where our daily 200 moving averages hanging out. So it's very tempting looking at this move to say, oh, the bottom's in, but it's also possible to say, gosh, we've just done a three-wave correction and we could here roll over lower. So trade carefully until we get this confirmed. So Kai, for example, yesterday I was looking at, wanted to see if we could see a breakout from this kind of 50% pattern. So each time it bounced, this 50% level first time over was a problem. On the 4-hour, it looked like we'd really gone for it. However, the daily close is really important, and this was a really good example of that. So this 50% level that we were looking for from this high to low here, we couldn't close above. We had a really nice look above it. We would have needed to hold above to keep going, and we couldn't. 44 to 29, 0.4429 against the dollar then is still really important resistance. Do I still like it? Yeah, look at this fantastic rally, a nice three-wave correction, holding these daily moving averages. I think we're still set for another swing higher. It's just the correction that we're in is not quite over yet. And that means an opportunity. Okay, good luck. Let me know if there's anything you like.